Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something I never thought I'd have to face. Something that will probably make your jaw drop. And honestly, you probably won't survive this story without clutching a pillow, or reconsidering who you trust in your own family. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to watch the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Now settle into your favorite chair, maybe get a snack, and feel free to glance around your room. You're about to step into my life in my hometown, where betrayal smells like freshly baked bread and your neighbor's dog barking doesn't even distract you. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's comfortably embark on tonight's journey. It all started on an ordinary Tuesday, sunlight spilling lazily across our hardwood floors, the faint scent of coffee brewing in the kitchen, the low hum of a refrigerator, the kind of day that makes you think nothing disastrous could possibly occur. I'm in my study trying to sort through piles of old paperwork that I've been avoiding for months when my hand brushes against a small, nondescript key hidden between a stack of envelopes. The key feels cold, heavier than I expected, and it's attached to a tiny tag labeled B12. I frown, trying to remember if we even had anything stored in some numbered safety deposit box. My husband, God bless him, or maybe not, was usually tight-lipped about our finances. But there's a certain thrill in finding something hidden, isn't there? You know that mix of curiosity and fear that makes your pulse skip a beat? I slide my laptop aside because whatever's about to happen demands attention. The bank isn't far, a short 10-minute drive in a quiet neighborhood where people wave hello but don't know your real struggles. As I walk in, the receptionist gives me a polite nod and I feel the kind of weight that comes with opening Pandora's box, or in this case, a metal box labeled with numbers and secrecy. Mainstream family dynamics suggest that couples often maintain separate financial accounts to avoid conflict, but this felt different, more secretive. You can't help but wonder why. People still debate whether such secrecy is protective or just an invitation to disaster. The box clicks open with a soft metallic sound, echoing slightly in the sterile bank vault. Inside, I find several manila envelopes, each meticulously labeled with years and initials. There's also a small USB drive tucked into a corner like an afterthought. I take a deep breath. The smell of old paper and metal mixes oddly with the antiseptic scent of the vault. Oddly, it reminds me of cultural customs. I've read about some families in parts of Europe have long maintained secret inheritances in hidden spaces, even giving them to grandchildren before death to test loyalty. It sounds almost like folklore until you realize how painfully true it can feel when it happens in your own living room. As I pull the first envelope out, I notice handwriting that isn't my husband's, but familiar enough to make me pause. Each envelope contains financial records, letters, and strange little notes about gifts given or withheld. The first thought that flashes through my mind is this what he's been hiding all these years? And then another, colder thought, did our children know about this? My heart starts to thrum in a rhythm I can feel in my fingertips. I spend the next few minutes sifting carefully. One document is a list of accounts, some under names I recognize, others not. One of them belongs to a bank I'd never heard of in a country known for strict confidentiality laws, a fringe piece of information that makes me gulp. People still debate whether keeping foreign accounts is ethical or simply smart risk management. Here, it feels like a trap waiting to snap. My mind races. The standard, don't keep secrets. Lectures about family ethics clash with this hidden world of meticulous planning and possibly betrayal. Then, tucked beneath the paper stacks, I find a small envelope marked with the year 2012 and my children's initials. My hands tremble a little as I pull it open, the envelope already creased with age. Inside is a letter brief but revealing, suggesting that certain allowances and gifts were intentionally redirected, not randomly, not for necessity, but for control. It's subtle at first, but the implication hits me like a cold gust of wind. Someone close to me has been playing a careful game I had no idea existed. I pause, taking a sip of coffee I forgot was sitting on the edge of the table. Bitter, sharp, fits perfectly with the mood. I hear the faint clatter of the bank vault door reminding me that life goes on outside this moment of tension. You know that feeling when time stretches and contracts simultaneously? Every sound, every passing footstep seems amplified because suddenly everything feels fragile. In families, such hidden financial dynamics are more common than people admit, yet we pretend they don't exist to avoid conflict. The oddity is that they can create long-lasting rifts, often hidden under polite smiles at dinner. People still debate whether discovering secrets this way is cathartic or just a ticket to endless suspicion. I decide to plug in the USB drive. It hums to life with a quiet digital vibration, and on the screen files labeled with dates and names fill the monitor. Some are spreadsheets, some scanned documents, some short video clips from family events, innocuous at first glance, but layered with subtle notes in the margins. There's a pattern forming one that's difficult to articulate yet impossible to ignore. Something about how birthdays, allowances, and personal loans were allocated suddenly looks strategic. I lean back, trying to imagine why my husband, loving cautious, meticulous, would do this. And then the cruel thought strikes, maybe he didn't. Maybe someone else manipulated it. As I continue scanning the files, I feel the first pangs of that peculiar mixture of shock and amusement, the type that makes you whisper to yourself, well, this is absurd and terrifying. I chuckle nervously because in the midst of family secrets, humor feels like a lifeline, like when you accidentally pour sugar into your coffee instead of salt and just accept your fate. 3 light jokes later, I'm barely holding it together, the tension in my shoulders reminding me that I've stepped into a narrative much bigger than a casual Tuesday afternoon. By the time I close the vault, my head is spinning. I clutch the key in my hand as if it's a talisman, something tangible against the abstract chaos of betrayal and secrecy. Outside, the world seems unchanged. Cars glide past, people exchange polite smiles. But I feel transformed. Something delicate has been disrupted, and I know that tonight when I return home, the air will carry the weight of unspoken truths. Even as I drive back, the sun dipping low in the sky, painting streets with gold and pink hues, I can't help but wonder how many families harbor secrets like this. What lengths do people go to protect control or manipulate, often under the guise of love or prudence? Oddly, in some cultures, parents still test children with hidden inheritances to gauge character, a practice both revered and reviled. And here I am caught in the middle of that age-old debate without having volunteered. Back at home, I place the envelopes carefully on the kitchen table. The smell of evening meals from neighbors' kitchens drifts in faintly domestic normality, standing in stark contrast to the revelations waiting for me. I sip the now cold coffee, let out a long breath, and whisper, let's see what the truth really wants to tell me. The quiet hum of the refrigerator fills the spaces between thoughts, a mundane backdrop to a surreal sense of anticipation. People still debate whether confronting such hidden truths heals or harms a family, and frankly, I don't know which side I'm on yet. The key and the box have opened a door not just into hidden finances, but into layers of loyalty, deception, and perhaps unavoidable betrayal. And as I sit there letting the evening settle, I feel an almost cinematic shiver, like the moment before the first chapter of a book you can't put down. It's here right now that the journey begins. The first envelope I pulled out of the bank box already has my heart racing, but the second one marked 2015 feels heavier, not in weight but in implication. I spread it out carefully on the kitchen island, the paper whispering secrets as I open it. Inside are spreadsheets and handwritten notes detailing accounts and investments I never knew existed, with annotations about each child's access. It's methodical, almost obsessively neat, but underneath the order, I sense something personal, like a message intended to reveal truths at a precise moment. Mainstream family dynamics tell us that financial transparency is meant to build trust, yet here it feels like a tool for judgment or testing loyalty. People still debate whether secrecy in money matters, protects children from greed, or just cultivates resentment. I run my finger over the edges of the documents, noticing subtle handwriting differences. Certain accounts were increased incrementally, while others stayed stagnant, and the pattern is so precise that it couldn't have been accidental. Oddly enough, in some cultures, parents leave coded messages or gifts within inheritances to guide their heirs' behavior, a kind of invisible moral compass. Could my husband have been doing that? Or was someone else behind these calculated distributions? A shiver runs down my spine. As I cross-reference names with family events, the picture begins to take shape. My eldest, who always seemed diligent and trustworthy, had been quietly maneuvering funds in ways that suggested awareness beyond what I'd expected. Meanwhile, my youngest had accounts opened in their name, but left untouched as if someone had deliberately withheld access. I sip some tea to calm my nerves, the bitter tang grounding me, but the sense of betrayal keeps rolling through me like a relentless tide. I can't help but replay every ordinary moment in my memory. The birthday parties where my eldest seemed unusually attentive to small gifts, the casual advice offered during family dinners, even the late-night phone calls that seemed innocent. Each interaction now feels loaded with double meaning, as though I've been observing a play without realizing the script was written by someone else entirely. Inheritance planning is supposed to be rational, secure, but in my family it reads like an intricate puzzle designed to expose character. People still debate whether scrutinizing finances like this is paranoid or just painfully necessary. Then there's the oddest detail, small receipts tucked into envelopes showing purchases that had nothing to do with bills or charity. One shows a donation to a foundation I've never heard of, another a payment to an obscure artisan collective overseas. At first, I think perhaps it was a mistake until I noticed the annotations, tiny deliberate notes, hinting at influence, subtle nudges in directions my children were unaware of. In some fringe legal systems, parents are allowed to create conditional inheritances where access is only granted if certain moral or social criteria are met. It's almost like a game, and somehow this feels more like strategy than generosity. I pause and let my head fall into my hands, the weight of what I'm uncovering pressing down. I can feel the tension in my shoulders. Even the cat jumps up onto the countertail, flicking nervously, sensing the energy. There's a strange thrill to it, too, like peeling back a layer of domestic wallpaper to find a hidden room full of secrets. I laugh softly at the absurdity. It's funny and horrifying all at once that a normal Tuesday evening can transform into a revelation about the people closest to me. 3 light jokes later, I remind myself to breathe. The kitchen seems smaller, the shadows longer, and the quiet hum of the refrigerator becomes a soundtrack to the unraveling of trust. As I dig deeper into the envelopes, I discover notes referencing meetings and advice given by my husband, which he apparently documented meticulously. Some letters suggest subtle warnings or hints, almost like moral tests. One note mentions a minor dispute over allowances and concludes with the phrase, "Observe guide, but do not intervene unless necessary." I can practically hear him whispering this from beyond the paper, which is both comforting and unsettling. In some cultural rituals, parents leave written tests to challenge the ethical judgment of their children, ensuring they learn lessons about responsibility and integrity. It's strange to see such methods applied to modern family finance, yet here it is staring at me. The more I look, the more I see connections between small family events and these financial adjustments. A forgotten birthday gift suddenly seems significant. A brief disagreement about chores appears loaded with strategic meaning, and I start to wonder if everything I thought was casual was actually part of a calculated plan. The mainstream advice that children should never feel pressure from inheritance clashes sharply with what I'm uncovering. Here the pressure is palpable, the stakes invisible but real. People still debate whether such hidden guidance nurtures wisdom or cultivates secrecy and deceit. I take a deep breath and set the envelopes aside for a moment. The room feels charged with history and tension, a mix of mundane domesticity and high-stakes intrigue. The sun is dipped lower, casting golden streaks through the blinds, shadows stretching like silent witnesses. I sip my tea again, the warmth grounding me as I try to make sense of the complex network of trust, deception, and moral testing I've stumbled into. There's an odd pleasure in connecting dots, even when the picture they form is unsettling. Then I find a document that makes me pause entirely, A letter addressed to me tucked between two financial spreadsheets. The handwriting is familiar, my husband's, but the content is startling. It speaks of watching, observing, and waiting for the right time to reveal truths. It's not accusatory, not angry, just deliberate and precise. The words suggest he knew that our children might not always act with honesty or transparency, and that he had left breadcrumbs for me to discover proof, he calls it, of character and loyalty. Oddly, in certain inheritance customs, leaving evidence for the surviving spouse is considered essential to protect family legacy and moral guidance. People still debate whether such methods are manipulative or prudent. I can feel the tension building like a low drumbeat in my chest. Every document, every note, every spreadsheet reinforces a story I didn't expect. That beneath the surface of ordinary family life, there were complex negotiations, moral experiments, and subtle tests of loyalty I had been blind to. I'm fascinated and horrified all at once, the kind of emotional cocktail that keeps you awake and buzzing, even as the evening deepens and the world outside goes on as if nothing has changed. By the time I finish sorting through the envelope, I realize that tonight is only the beginning. The documents are more than numbers and names. They are a map of intentions, ambitions, and hidden alliances. There's a sense of suspense of chess pieces moving silently in a game I never knew I was part of. And somewhere deep down, I know I will have to confront these truths soon. How, when, and with whom remains the question. For now, I let the papers rest on the counter, my fingers lingering on the envelopes, tracing the lines, as if I can absorb the intentions written there. I chuckle softly at the absurdity, again imagining a family fortune behaving like a living puzzle, each piece whispering secrets and tests. And yet, amidst all the intrigue and tension, I feel strangely alive, alert and intensely aware of the thin line between normal family life and a web of secrets so intricate that only discovery could reveal it. Dinner that night feels different before it even begins. The aroma of roasted chicken wafts from the kitchen, mingling with the faint smell of lavender from the vase by the window. Normally, these familiar scents are comforting, but tonight they seem ironic, almost mocking. I sit at the head of the table, the envelopes from the bank box stacked neatly to my side, like silent witnesses to a world my children don't yet realize I've discovered. Mainstream family dynamics suggest that shared meals are supposed to foster intimacy and connection, yet I can feel the tension vibrating under the surface, subtle but undeniable. People still debate whether family dinners build bonds or simply become a stage for performances. My eldest walks in first, smiling, chatting about school projects and weekend plans, unaware of the storm gathering just inches from them. I notice little things, nervous tics, a hand brushing hair back more often than usual, the way my youngest keeps glancing at the corner of the room. It's all mundane, but suddenly it feels like code. There's a strange thrill in observing these micro moments, like watching a magician's sleight of hand. Oddly, in some cultural traditions, parents are trained to watch children carefully during ordinary routines to detect integrity, honesty, and character. Tonight, I feel I am becoming part of that tradition, whether I intended to or not. I begin with small talk, letting it flow naturally, though each word feels charged. "How was your day?" I ask, voice calm, almost casual, as if everything is normal. But inside, my mind is racing. I already know too much to pretend. I can see my eldest's slight hesitation before answering, and my youngest's overly bright smile falters for just a fraction of a second. Each micro-expression is a clue, and I feel a mix of anxiety and amusement at how obvious the truths are if you pay attention. 3 light jokes later, one about a missing sock, one about my own clumsiness, one about the cat's mischief. I can almost hear the tension loosen. Just a touch, though the undercurrent remains. Then the conversation shifts inevitably. My eldest casually mentions a family trip, and the way they phrase the details strikes me as rehearsed, like they're testing how I'll respond. My heart skips. I quietly recall the bank box, the envelopes, the documents, and the moral tests left in writing. Suddenly, each word feels loaded with hidden meaning. Mainstream studies suggest that children often mimic adult behaviors to test reactions, sometimes without even realizing it. But here, I sense intentionality, a strategic precision that unsettles me. People still debate whether children consciously manipulate or simply respond to perceived opportunity. I pick up a fork, slowly cutting into my chicken, letting the sound of slicing punctuate the silence between questions. My youngest asks about allowances, a mundane inquiry that suddenly feels like a challenge. I glance casually at the envelopes, knowing exactly what they are referring to, though they have no idea. I offer a measured answer, neutral in tone, revealing nothing, keeping my thoughts carefully veiled. There's a peculiar satisfaction in this small control, a sense that I'm beginning to see the board for the first time. Then comes the first real test, a subtle accusation disguised as humor. My eldest jokes about being overlooked in past family decisions, a comment that should be light-hearted but lands like a stone in the calm water. I can see the calculation behind it, the attempt to gauge my response. I smile, keeping the tension beneath the surface, while inside, I feel the cold tingle of vindication. Oddly, inheritance laws in some regions allow for the adjustment of distributions based on behavior, which makes this feel almost like a formal audit of moral character. People still debate whether these methods encourage responsibility or breed deceit. I notice my youngest fidgeting hands in laps, shifting weight from side to side, eyes darting toward the envelopes I have discreetly placed at the edge of the table. A casual observer would see nothing, but every parent knows that children communicate in ways beyond words. The room feels electric, each gesture and glance amplified by the invisible tension. The cat jumps onto the counter again, tail flicking, as if sensing the emotional charge. I laugh softly, light joke number 3 about how even the cat is judging us tonight. The small humor eases the edge just enough to keep the atmosphere from boiling over completely. I let the conversation drift toward mundane topics, home repairs, television shows, errands, but the undercurrent remains. Every laugh feels slightly forced. Every story feels like a test. I realize that the evening is not about dinner anymore. It's about observation, patience, and understanding the strategies my children have been employing, perhaps since long before I ever discovered the bank box. In some fringe family traditions, parents watch patterns of conversation and behavior during meals to determine character, trustworthiness, and future potential. It's strange how modern life can mirror ancient practices so closely. After dessert, I notice a sudden silence, almost imperceptible, as if everyone senses the weight of the room. I decide to broach the topic gently, asking a question about their understanding of family responsibilities and fairness. The words are simple, but the meaning is profound. Their answers are measured, cautious, and carefully constructed, each one revealing more than they intend. Subtle alliances and hidden motivations are slowly surfacing, and I find myself both alarmed and fascinated. People still debate whether children naturally exhibit strategic thinking or whether they are shaped entirely by their upbringing. By the time the plates are cleared, I feel the first threads of clarity emerging from the evening. I've witnessed lies, half-truths, strategic omissions, and honest moments, all in the span of a single meal. Each observation is a piece of the larger puzzle that the bank box hinted at, a map of loyalties, manipulations, and family politics. I can almost hear the echoes of past arguments, the whispered concerns, and the subtle strategies that shaped these dinner table interactions. As I put the envelopes back in their safe place and rise from the table, I feel a combination of exhaustion and exhilaration. The ordinary dinner has revealed extraordinary truths, and I know that the coming days will demand further investigation, careful questioning, and a readiness to confront more uncomfortable realities. Yet amidst the tension and the creeping sense of betrayal, there is also a strange thrill and awakening to the intricate web of intentions, strategies, and hidden histories within my own family. Tonight, as I close the kitchen door behind me and let the soft hum of the house envelop me, I reflect on what I've seen. Ordinary family life can be deceptive. Beneath the routine chatter and the shared meals, there can exist a labyrinth of loyalty tests, moral trials, and subtle manipulations. And here I am holding the map, deciphering the code, preparing for the next confrontation that will undoubtedly bring more truths to light. The next morning, sunlight filters weakly through the blinds, casting long, narrow stripes across the living room carpet. There's a peculiar quiet, the kind that stretches too long and presses against your chest like a subtle warning. I brew coffee, the aroma grounding me, and glance once more at the envelopes resting where I left them on the kitchen island. The one that draws me most is a small, yellowed envelope tucked behind the 2015 documents. It's delicate, almost fragile, with my husband's initials scrawled in neat cursive, JH, family notes. Inside, I find letters from years past folded carefully, some with dates going back a decade. They're forgotten correspondence, the kind you stumble upon only when the right moment chooses you. Mainstream family dynamics teach us that old letters can offer insight into the evolution of relationships, yet these feel deliberately hidden, a secret archive of intentions. People still debate whether keeping correspondence like this strengthens memory or fosters guilt. As I unfold the first letter, I notice the faint scent of the paper, musty, yet comforting in a way that evokes nostalgia. The handwriting is familiar, precise, but the content is jarring. It references small incidents I had long since forgotten, moments in which my children acted deceptively, sometimes innocently, sometimes with clear awareness. My husband notes each instance with care, recording who said what, who noticed, who had access to what funds. I trace my fingers along the inked words, feeling a surreal sense of intimacy with someone who is no longer here to clarify intentions. The letters reveal patterns. My eldest's calculated generosity, my youngest's subtle evasions, and even my spouse's own management of the family narrative all unfold like chapters in a psychological drama. Oddly, in some inheritance rituals across the world, parents leave letters for spouses and children that outline behaviors, moral lessons, and sometimes cryptic advice to guide future decisions. I shiver at the resemblance between those cultural practices and the meticulous records in my hands. Could this have been intentional foresight, a form of ethical preparation, or simply obsessive documentation? People still debate whether such systems cultivate moral responsibility or merely breed distrust. I find one note describing a minor argument over chores a day. I remember vividly when my eldest refused to help with the garden, and I had scolded them lightly. The letter's margin reads, "Observe reactions. Patience reveals character." I feel a pang of guilt for not noticing this pattern earlier. My husband, in his quiet way, had been testing, guiding, and documenting with such precision that I now feel as if I'm entering a labyrinth without a map. I sip the coffee, slowly letting its warmth anchor me while the letters weave a story I wasn't prepared to hear. Another envelope contains a letter from 2011 detailing a misunderstanding during a vacation. My youngest had taken money from my wallet, something I barely remember, and the note explains how my husband had subtly adjusted allowances to test honesty and integrity. The concept is strange, but oddly fascinating. Fringe inheritance laws in some countries allow for conditional gifts or delayed access to funds based on moral behavior. The idea is to teach children lessons without overt confrontation. Here it reads as both a protective measure and a revelation of my children's strategic thinking. People still debate whether such manipulations are benevolent or unnecessarily controlling. I put down the letter, trying to absorb what I've learned. The letters, mundane at first glance, carry an undercurrent of emotional weight. They reveal not just past actions, but also intentions, suspicions, and hopes. My children, whom I had assumed naive and trusting, appear far more strategic than I ever realized. There's an almost cinematic quality to the unfolding drama, as if the house itself holds memories and secret whispers, every corner observing silently. 3 light jokes help me breathe a quip about the cat always choosing the wrong corner, a joke about my own forgetfulness, and a laugh about how even plants seem to judge my parenting. The levity is small, but it helps me brace for what comes next. I notice one letter is folded in an unusual way, the creases sharp and deliberate. Opening it, I find what looks like a plan or a timeline, birthdays, milestones, allowances, and gifts all coordinated with notes about who should receive what, when, and how. It's meticulous to the point of obsession, yet the intention seems protective, not punitive. The letter references subtle nudges, moral challenges, and guidance left intentionally for me to find. In some cultural customs, parents leave cryptic instructions to ensure that family legacies, material and ethical, are maintained properly. People still debate whether such interventions nurture wisdom or sow seeds of resentment. As I continue reading, a pattern emerges. Certain gifts were withheld, certain celebrations, understated, seemingly trivial things that when combined reveal a deliberate strategy. My eldest, naturally intuitive, appears to have picked up on these patterns, adjusting their own behavior accordingly. My youngest seems unaware of the larger narrative, yet small actions hint at hidden awareness. I'm both impressed and unsettled by the layers of observation and response that have quietly structured our family life. I sit back, letting the chair creak beneath me, and try to reconcile what I've learned. Ordinary moments, birthday parties, small arguments, household tasks suddenly feel layered with invisible significance. The letters reveal not just behavior, but the underlying moral fabric my husband hoped to instill. It's strange how mundane events take on weight when seen through the lens of intention and foresight. Even as I marvel at the intricate design, I feel the familiar pang of betrayal, not personal but systemic, as if I had been unaware of the rules of a game I'd been participating in all along. Then I find a letter addressed to me directly postmarked the year before my husband's passing. The words are gentle, instructive, and tinged with sorrow. He acknowledges possible conflict outlines, lessons learned from past experiences, and emphasizes observation over confrontation. The letter feels like a soft nudge, a way to prepare me for discoveries like the bank box and the envelopes I had unearthed. Oddly, in some inheritance practices, such guidance is designed to soften shock, ensuring that the recipient can navigate revelations without impulsive reactions. People still debate whether letters of foresight should remain hidden or be revealed gradually. I set the letters aside, realizing that my children's choices, what seemed innocent, trivial, or strategic, are part of a larger tapestry woven over years. It's not just about money allowances or gifts. It's about understanding, guiding, and shaping moral character. My role, I now see, is both observer and participant, tasked with interpreting, responding, and ultimately deciding how to act. The quiet hum of the house, the soft morning light, and the faint chirping from outside create a surreal backdrop to what feels like a clandestine revelation unfolding in real time. By the time I close the last envelope, I feel both enlightened and burdened. The letters, documents, and hidden plans are not merely relics of the past. They are active agents shaping how I perceive my children, their intentions, and the moral landscape of our family. And while the morning moves on outside, inside a story of betrayal, subtle manipulation, and moral testing unfolds one layer at a time, leaving me both in awe and on edge, fully aware that this journey has only just begun. The following afternoon, the house feels unusually quiet. My children are each in their own rooms, ostensibly busy with homework, social calls, or online projects, but I can't shake the feeling that the calm is deceptive. There's a peculiar stillness, the kind that signals anticipation, as if the air itself is aware of the truths I've been uncovering. I glance toward the kitchen table where the envelopes rest stacked carefully, their edges crisp and orderly. My coffee sits beside them, steam curling lazily into the sunlit room, though I barely notice the warmth. Mainstream family dynamics often suggest that transparency and conversation can prevent miscommunication, yet here silence feels loaded with potential revelations. People still debate whether waiting for children to reveal themselves organically is wiser than direct confrontation. I decide to observe more closely, scanning the living room for subtle interactions. A small framed photo of a past birthday catches my eye, my children in mid-laugh, unaware that every smile and gesture is now part of a narrative I am piecing together. Oddly, in some unusual inheritance traditions, photographs, objects, and even mundane trinkets are analyzed by parents as markers of behavior and moral development. It's almost ritualistic, strange, and yet I understand the impulse to track character intentions and tendencies without overtly influencing them. My hands tremble slightly as I pick up the photo, tracing the edges. Later, I catch a glimpse of a private message on my eldest's tablet, left accidentally open on the kitchen counter. It's brief, innocuous on the surface, but the timing, wording, and recipients suggest hidden alliances. My stomach twists as I realize that the web of communication extends beyond casual conversation. My eldest has been coordinating with someone outside the household, someone with influence over finances and decisions, though their intentions remain unclear. People still debate whether such outside alliances are normal teenage socialization or early signs of strategic manipulation. I walk slowly toward the study, letting my mind wander as I reflect on past patterns. There's the argument over summer camp funds, the discussion about birthday presents, and the subtle adjustments in allowance over months and years, all of which now appear deliberate. Each minor discrepancy, once ignored or brushed off, feels like a piece of a larger puzzle. Oddly, historical cultural practices have long recognized that children respond to hidden signals, conditional rewards, and tests of moral courage. It seems modern families may unconsciously replicate these patterns. The line between nurturing guidance and manipulation is blurred, but tonight I sense the distinction sharply. As I sit at the desk, my hand hovers over the envelopes. I open the one marked 2017 and find a cluster of receipts, notes, and letters detailing small, seemingly trivial gifts and actions. My youngest is mentioned several times, their missteps cataloged in a precise, almost clinical fashion. There are subtle corrections, hints, and redirections noted in the margins. My husband, it seems, had been guiding these behaviors quietly, leaving breadcrumbs for me, or perhaps for them to discover later. There's a strange comfort in knowing that much of the chaos wasn't random, though the emotional weight is undeniable. I hear the faint sound of footsteps approaching, and my eldest walks into the room pretending casualness. Their eyes flicker toward the desk, and I feel the tension spike. Without words, the room communicates volumes. I offer a gentle, neutral smile and ask about homework. The answer is measured cautious and precise, yet beneath the calm surface I sense a test. 3 light jokes later, a comment about a missing pen, a quip about the cat knocking over a mug, a humorous remark about laundry, I see the tension ease just enough to maintain civility, but the undercurrent remains palpable. The next envelope, labeled 2018, is heavier, filled with letters referencing interactions with friends, teachers, and distant relatives. It includes observations about how my children handle praise, disappointment, and ethical dilemmas. One letter details a minor incident involving a borrowed library book and the subtleties of honesty and responsibility. Oddly, in some fringe legal systems, minor transgressions are documented to evaluate character before allowing inheritance or responsibility in family assets. The parallels between these letters and my current discoveries make the household feel like a live social experiment. People still debate whether meticulous documentation of minor moral failings fosters growth or fosters resentment. I glance again at my youngest, who fidgets slightly while pretending to read. The subtle body language is telling crossed arms, a slight lean back, careful control of facial expression. Observation, patience, and timing become as essential as breathing. Each gesture, word, and reaction adds layers to the story I am piecing together. I realize that my husband's careful preparation, the envelopes, the bank box, and the letters all functioned as a network, a silent, structured system to observe, record, and perhaps influence behavior over time. The more I uncover, the more intricate it becomes. A surprising discovery emerges in the 2019 letters notes about interactions between my children and their peers, hint at influences beyond our household. Certain gifts and allowances were strategically directed to encourage moral courage or discretion in social interactions. One note references a minor lie told by my eldest, followed by a subtle reward in another form. The careful orchestration of consequences, rewards, and observation reflects not merely financial planning, but a philosophy of character development that I had never consciously recognized. Oddly, in some inheritance rituals, parents are encouraged to create such conditional environments, shaping values before wealth changes hands. People still debate whether these interventions manipulate children or cultivate ethical maturity. By the time I finish sorting through the latest envelope, I feel a strange mixture of awe and fatigue. I've been piecing together patterns of behavior alliances and hidden influence stretching over years, revealing a complex network of intentions. Every trivial incident, the forgotten chore, the borrowed item, the casual lie suddenly feels like a calculated move in a much larger game. I laugh softly, a brief, light-hearted release, imagining the absurdity of domestic life as a chessboard, with me finally noticing the hidden pieces. 3 light jokes later, one about a misaligned picture frame, one about my own forgetfulness, and one about the cat's unpredictable allegiance, I feel grounded enough to continue the investigation. As evening falls, the house quiets further. The letters, spreadsheets, and receipts rest before me like a map of our family's hidden life, a delicate yet heavy tapestry of loyalty, strategy, and moral testing. The knowledge is intoxicating, disorienting, and illuminating. I realize I have only begun to understand the intricate web my husband constructed, the subtle lessons embedded in daily interactions, and the careful observation required to see truth amidst ordinary chaos. This is more than financial planning. It's a blueprint of character, a guide to ethical judgment, and a revelation of hidden allegiances. The next evening, everything erupts. It starts with a question seemingly harmless tossed casually across the living room like a pebble in a pond. "Mom, when are you planning to update your will?" My eldest asks, eyes locked on the television, but voice just sharp enough to slice through the quiet. I freeze. The question doesn't come out of nowhere. Not after the files I've read, the financial logs, the intentional discrepancies I now understand weren't oversights. This was the first shot. Mainstream family dynamics tell us that discussing wills is considered taboo in many homes, especially when the parents are still relatively young and healthy. But families like mine, we dress it up in polite language and nervous laughter, hoping no one notices the greed hanging behind every word. People still debate whether children should even be involved in these conversations, or if doing so just breeds entitlement. I put down my tea and look at them slowly. "Why do you ask?" They shrug, but I see the flicker in their eyes, uncertainty testing, perhaps even guilt. No reason, just it's something we should plan, right? And just like that, the air shifts. My youngest, curled on the opposite couch, tries to act disinterested, but their posture stiffens. I watch as they slowly draw their legs up under themselves, shrinking slightly, avoiding my gaze. These aren't children anymore, they're contenders. Quiet, careful players in a game I didn't know was being played until it was already half over. I lean back into the couch, letting the silence settle. The room hums with television static and something heavier tension truth, and the unmistakable scent of challenge. You know, I say lightly, your father kept detailed notes about everything. Who said what? Who did what? Who cared? That lands like a brick in a glass house. My eldest flinches just barely. My youngest looks at me now wide-eyed, as if seeing me clearly for the first time. I stand and walk to the kitchen, not out of escape, but because I want the distance. I want them to feel the echo of their own words as I turn my back. Oddly, in certain ancient family traditions, moments of confrontation are staged intentionally to see who folds, who fights, who flees. These rituals, passed down like quiet family recipes, often involve sudden questions at meals or unexpected reveals during celebrations. You measure not just words, but reactions. People still debate whether these traditions create honesty or just train deception. Back at the kitchen table, I slide the 2019 envelope out and place it on the surface. It's already been opened, read, and reread, but tonight it becomes something else a fuse. Dinner is quiet. Too quiet. You can always tell when a family is hiding something by the way their forks clink too softly and the napkins never seem to leave their laps. About halfway through the meal, the dam breaks. I think it's unfair, my eldest blurts, voice tight and trembling with righteousness. You always treat us like children, but we're the ones who've actually helped run this house. I've kept things together while you've... The sentence dies midair. I don't need to respond. I let the silence do the talking. But my youngest doesn't. That's not true, they snap. You helped yourself to everything. You've been reading her papers when she's not even looking. Because I care. My eldest shouts. Because I knew she'd get manipulated, otherwise the room explodes. Not in chaos, but in clarity. All the small things I'd noticed, the missing documents, the sudden interest in my schedule, the seemingly innocent offers to help manage bills, now surge forward like water through a burst dam. And there's a kind of ugly beauty to it, the way everything spills at once. I watch them argue voices, rising accusations flung like knives sharpened years ago. My youngest brings up childhood slights. My eldest counters with stories of responsibility and sacrifice. Somewhere in the crossfire, I hear mention of a cousin, an advisor, a whispered conversation in a hallway I wasn't meant to overhear. It's all here: resentment, rivalry, fear of being left behind. Oddly, in some cultures, family inheritances are handled by third parties, specifically to avoid scenes like this. Mediators, legal advisors, even priests take the burden of distribution to prevent emotional implosions. People still debate whether keeping the process impersonal preserves peace or erases accountability. I let them argue. I let them feel the weight of their words. And then I speak, quietly, calmly. I've read everything your father left behind, every note, every letter, every line. They go still. I know who took what. Who lied, who helped, who didn't. And I've been watching how you handle each other in the aftermath, what you say to my face, and what you say when you think I'm not listening. My eldest blinks hard. My youngest lowers their head. I stand, walk slowly to the living room, and return with a folder. Inside are copies of the documents marked highlighted, annotated with what I now know. I set it between them on the table. This is what he saw, what he documented, and what I've decided not to ignore anymore. 3 light jokes rise in my throat, desperate to break the tension, but I swallow them. Tonight, truth is better served cold. I look at my children and see not the faces of babies I once bathed and fed, but 2 young adults standing at a crossroads, one paved with manipulation, the other with reflection. People still debate, I say slowly, whether parents should protect their children from their own worst impulses or let them fall and see what they learn in the wreckage. Neither speaks. I leave the folder there and walk upstairs. Back in my bedroom, the fan hums. The window is cracked slightly, letting in the cool scent of evening rain. I sit on the edge of the bed and stare at the wall for a long time. Downstairs, I hear one of them pick up the folder. Then the other says something. I can't hear what. Then silence. I lay back, staring at the ceiling. In some families, a confrontation like this ends everything. In others, it begins healing. Right now, I don't know which way the wind will blow. But at least finally, the air is clear. The morning after the blow-up, the house feels like a church after a funeral, quiet, charged, and full of things left unsaid. Light pours into the kitchen like nothing happened, but everything has changed. You know that feeling when the silence isn't empty, but heavy, as if every wall, every spoon, every coffee mug knows what was said last night. I move slowly, not because I'm tired, but because I'm listening. For footsteps, for whispers, for the sound of pages turning from the folder I left on the table. But it's gone. Not the folder my children. Their rooms are empty beds made. Not a note, not a text. Just absence. Mainstream family dynamics often stress the importance of immediate reconciliation after conflict, but the truth, sometimes space is more honest than forced apologies. People still debate whether distance after a confrontation heals wounds or simply allows them to fester in silence. I sip my coffee, hot, bitter, bracing. No sugar today. Sweetness doesn't match the mood. On the counter is something I hadn't expected to find: my youngest's journal. A small leather-bound thing I'd gifted them years ago, pages usually locked behind teenage secrecy. But today, it's out, open, left where I'd see it. I hesitate. This crosses a line, doesn't it? But when someone leaves you a thread like this, they want you to pull it. Inside the writing is messy, emotional, honest. It doesn't confess everything, but it does enough. I didn't mean to betray her. One page begins, but I felt like I had to pick a side. And he, meaning their sibling, always seemed like he knew more than me, had more power. I didn't want to be left behind. There it is, the quiet confession, the motive, not greed, not malice, just fear. The fear of being the forgotten child, the one with empty birthday cards and secondhand college advice. Oddly, in many traditional family systems, the youngest is either overprotected or emotionally neglected, rarely balanced. They grow up watching the older siblings steer the ship and learn to either obey or rebel. People still debate whether the youngest child ever truly feels like an equal. I flip a few more pages. They talk about guilt, about watching me from the hallway the night I discovered the key, about wondering if I'd finally find out what they did. It's not specific, but it's enough. They knew. The door creaks and I snap the journal shut, not out of shame, but instinct. My eldest walks in. No good morning, just a long stare. Not angry, not defensive, just tired. "Where's your sibling?" I ask. "Went for a walk, said they needed air." I nod. The silence between us now isn't sharp like last night. It's softer, but no less tense. They sit across from me and rest their hands on the table. I read everything they say. I stayed up all night going through it. Every line, every note, every comment he made. And it's not fair. Their voice cracks just slightly. It's not fair that he got to judge us like that, they stopped breathe, that you kept it from us. I close my eyes for a moment, not to hide, but to steady. I didn't know, I say. Not until the key, not until the vault. They nod, but they don't look satisfied. He made us compete. We just didn't realize it until it was too late. Oddly, in certain dynastic families, sibling rivalry was intentionally fostered. Kings, queens, and patriarchs would pit their children against each other to toughen them up, believing that adversity builds character. People still debate whether that approach builds strong leaders or just broken families. I never wanted you two to fight, I say. And he, your father, never said a word. Yeah, but he didn't have to. We sit in that sentence for a long time. Eventually, my eldest stands, looks toward the window, then back at me. I'm not proud of what I did, and I know you're disappointed, but I thought I was protecting you. I hold up a hand. You thought it was a game you had to win. They nod. One of the smallest nods I've ever seen, but it lands like thunder. Later that afternoon, I find my youngest on the porch swing, knees hugged to their chest. When I sit beside them, they don't move away. I didn't read the rest, they whisper. After you left last night, I couldn't. You don't have to, I say. Not yet. They glance at me, eyes red but steady. Was it bad? It was honest. I didn't want to lie to you. But They gesture vaguely toward the house. He said you wouldn't understand. The swing creaks as we move back and forth, that old wooden rhythm, slow and steady like a heartbeat trying to forgive itself. You know what I hate the most, my youngest says after a while? That we thought it was about the money. I look at them. It was never about the money, was it? I shake my head. No. It was about who you became trying to get it. We sit in silence for a while longer. There's no fixing things overnight, no clean apology, just space, movement, truth breathing between us like something fragile and growing. 3 light jokes pass between us eventually. A laugh about how terrible the porch swing sounds. A jab about Dad's old shoes still in the garage. A sigh laugh about how the cat somehow stayed neutral through the whole war. Oddly, in some indigenous cultures, family conflicts are resolved not through confrontation, but through storytelling, each person recounting the event from their own perspective, uninterrupted. Healing doesn't come from punishment or retribution, but from understanding. People still debate whether modern families need more therapy or more storytelling. That night, I write a letter not for my children, not even for my husband, but for myself. I write down everything: the bank box, the documents, the suspicions, the confrontation, the confessions. I fold the pages carefully and place them in a small wooden box on my bookshelf, not to hide but to preserve. Because this story isn't over, and one day someone else in this family may need to know where it all began. The next few days pass like dust settling after a long storm, quiet, oddly still, but nothing quite lands where it used to. The energy in the house has shifted. No one slams doors anymore. No one raises voices. But that doesn't mean the tension is gone. It's just changed form, like steam condensing back into water, denser, heavier, real. I find my eldest in the garage that Friday afternoon sorting through old storage boxes they hadn't touched since high school. They're sitting cross-legged on the floor, flipping through photo albums, yearbooks, old certificates, all the little paper ghosts of a former self. They glance up when I walk in, but don't say anything at first. I never looked at these, they finally say. Even when we moved here, I just shoved them into boxes and forgot. I nod. Sometimes forgetting is easier than explaining. They smile faintly, the kind of smile that breaks your heart if you know what to look for. You think Dad ever looked through all this? Oh, he looked through everything, I say with a chuckle. That man could spend 3 hours pretending to organize tools just to find one picture from a school play. We laugh. Not hard, but enough. 3 light jokes come and go, one about their 5th grade haircut disaster, another about a trophy that was mysteriously lost after a sibling argument, and one about how Dad used to label every drawer in the garage but never followed his own system. Then something catches my eye, an old shoebox tucked in the back of a shelf behind paint cans and Christmas lights. It's one of those shoeboxes that doesn't belong anywhere and yet somehow contains everything. We pull it down. Inside are receipts, postcards, handwritten notes, and most surprising of all, an old flash drive with a sticky note on it. Final conversations. My breath catches. I stare at the note like it's a ghost. We take it inside, plug it into the family laptop, and wait. It's slow old, the kind of flash drive that clicks in stubbornly and loads with a hum that sounds like it hasn't breathed in years. There are 6 video files. Each one is titled with a name. Mine, my eldest's, my youngest's, and 3 others, 2 aunts, 1 cousin. The one marked with my name starts first automatically. It's my husband sitting in his office, the one he kept neat and impersonal. He looks tired but clear-eyed. The date stamp is from a year before his death. "Hey, sweetheart," he begins. His voice is softer than I remember, slower. If you're watching this, it means the box has been opened. I never wanted it to come to this, but I knew I couldn't explain it all face to face. You would have stopped me. You always wanted peace. But sometimes peace comes after the fire, not before it. He pauses, looks down, takes a breath. I did what I did because I love all of you. But I saw things, patterns, cracks, and I knew if I didn't create something to reveal them, we'd all keep pretending. Mainstream family advice tells us never to speak ill of the dead. But watching this, I don't feel anger. Just a complicated grief, a strange blend of affection, betrayal, and reluctant admiration. People still debate whether posthumous messages like this bring healing or just dig up old wounds. The message continues. He speaks about specific moments when he saw ambition twisting into control, when he noticed fear becoming silence. He says he left the letters not to punish, but to open eyes. That truth when revealed all at once often destroys, but truth revealed slowly through careful observation might still lead to growth. He ends with, "Tell them I love them enough to hold a mirror to their faces. I don't cry, not yet." My eldest sits in silence beside me, face pale, jaw tight. "I hated him," they whisper. For a while, I really hated him. "I know," I say. I think he expected that. Later that night, I sit with my youngest. We don't talk about the videos. We don't talk about the folder. We sit in the living room with popcorn and a movie neither of us really watches. But halfway through, my youngest leans into me and says quietly, "I'm sorry for the things I thought, the things I let happen." I stroke their hair like I used to when they were small. I know, and I'm still here. Oddly, in certain cultures, reconciliation between family members isn't spoken, it's shown. Through proximity, through gestures, through presence. People still debate whether apologies matter more in words or actions. The next day, we open the other files, the ones meant for the rest of the family. We send them privately, each one with a short note. He wanted you to see this. When you're ready. A few days later, I get a call from my cousin. She's crying. She says she had no idea my husband knew about what happened in 2013 about the family loan. No one repaid the tension that split her from my sister. He wrote it down, she asks. He remembered, yes. I say. He remembered everything. And suddenly, people start talking again, not just in our house, but across the whole family web. The bank box, the letters, the videos, they weren't just a test for my children, they were a quiet reckoning for all of us. In some families, history lives in stories passed down around dinner tables. In ours, it was locked in a box, and now it's out, and now maybe healing can begin. By the end of the week, something unexpected happens. Not a grand gesture or a tearful group hug. No, our family doesn't do Hallmark moments, but a slow, almost invisible return to something like rhythm, not trust, not yet, but rhythm. I notice it in the clinking of dishes during breakfast, where silence used to fill every inch. I see it when my eldest starts refolding the laundry without being asked, and my youngest leaves sticky notes on the fridge with passive-aggressive reminders to not forget the coffee filters again. It's not reconciliation, but it's movement. Mainstream family psychology tells us that rebuilding trust after betrayal is like rewiring a house. You have to tear out the old before you lay new lines. But no one tells you how quiet that demolition can be. People still debate whether forgiveness requires an apology or if it can live quietly in the space between gestures. We don't talk about the bank box anymore, not directly, but its ghost lingers in every room. Like when my eldest brings in the mail and pauses over a financial statement, or when my youngest lingers at the bookshelf, fingers brushing the edge of the wooden box I tucked my own letter into. It's everywhere now, the awareness. And then late one night, something shifts again. I wake up to the sound of soft knocks. It's nearly midnight. My youngest stands at the door to my room barefoot, their voice barely a whisper. "Can I show you something?" They lead me to their room where they've laid out a stack of papers, timelines, highlighted spreadsheets, and sticky notes. A color-coded map of the family, not of names or birthdays of behaviors, choices, arguments, moments. They've been tracking everything since the night of the argument, not to prove anyone wrong, but to understand. I wanted to know why he thought what he did, why you reacted the way you did, why we all ended up this way, they say, sitting cross-legged on the floor. I sit beside them, and we pore over the evidence together like two detectives trying to solve a case we both lived. One chart tracks emotional responses, who was quiet after which decision, who raised their voice, who disappeared. Another maps out financial decisions next to holidays and family events. It's bizarrely brilliant, unnervingly intimate. "I think I wanted to blame everyone else," my youngest says softly. "But now I wonder if we were all just scared we wouldn't matter unless we grabbed the biggest slice first." I reach over and place my hand over theirs. "You mattered the moment you were born. You didn't have to fight for that." They nod, but I can tell the belief is still catching up with the truth. Oddly, in certain philosophies, especially in Eastern traditions, there is a belief that betrayal within families is not an end, but an invitation. To confront ego, to dissolve pride, to rebuild from humility. People still debate whether Western families need more accountability or more surrender. A few days later, my eldest calls a family meeting. No one calls it that out loud, of course. We just end up in the same room at the same time, each holding a mug of something warm like we planned it. They begin. "I've been selfish," they say. "Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because I didn't think anyone would catch me. And when they did, I doubled down. Because shame is loud, and I didn't want to be the villain." The room goes still. Then my youngest speaks. "You weren't the villain. You were just ahead of the rest of us in the wrong direction." We all exhale at the same time, and then I speak. "Your father didn't set this up to punish you. He set it up because he was afraid. He didn't know how to talk about the cracks he saw forming, so he tried to build a mirror instead, one he hoped you'd see yourselves in." I reach into the envelope beside me, the one I hadn't shared yet, and pull out a final letter addressed to both of them. I unfold it carefully. The paper is crisp, the ink slightly faded. It reads, "To my children." If you're reading this, then the quiet is broken. And that's good, because silence can only cover so much. I've watched you grow, compete, love, and hide. I've seen the best of you. And the parts you didn't know, I noticed. This box, these letters, they're not about the money. They're about what money reveals. Some people become generous when they think they've inherited. Others become cruel. Some disappear. Some show up too late. I wanted to give you the chance to see what you'd do when you thought I wasn't looking. I was always looking. And even when I didn't like what I saw, I never stopped loving you. But love isn't blindness. Love is watching, remembering, and still hoping you'll choose better next time. This letter isn't the end. It's the invitation. Choose who you want to be now that you've seen it all. I fold it back up. No one says anything. But I watch as my eldest wipes their cheek with the back of their hand, and my youngest leans their head on their sibling's shoulder, awkwardly but real. 3 light jokes emerge in the next hour, one about how Dad would have hated how emotional we're being, another about how the cat still hasn't taken a side, and a third about how we should have charged admission to this family drama. Oddly, in some inheritance rituals across Africa, the process ends with laughter, deliberately. Because laughter is the only thing that truly resets the energy in a space poisoned by secrets. People still debate whether families that laugh together heal faster or just hide things better. That night I light a candle in the kitchen, not for any spiritual reason, but because the glow feels like a quiet promise that whatever comes next will be different. Not perfect, not clean, but open. For the first time in weeks, I sleep with the door slightly ajar. And so do they. It's not over, but it's no longer hidden. The house feels different now. Not lighter. No, the air is still thick with everything we said and everything we left unsaid, but different. More awake, more honest. Even the shadows stretching across the hallways seem softer, less accusatory, like they're no longer hiding the weight of secrets. It's the kind of shift you only notice after surviving a storm, the way the ground feels steadier, even if it's still damp from the flood. Mainstream family advice says closure comes in neat packages, apologies, hugs, forgiveness over coffee. But real life, it's jagged, messy. It shows up in sideways glances, in the quiet way someone refills your glass at dinner without being asked. People still debate whether closure is an actual destination or just a story we tell ourselves to make pain sound more manageable. On Sunday morning, I walk into the living room to find both my children already there. No phones, no distractions, just waiting. My eldest looks restless, bouncing a foot against the floor. My youngest is staring at the cat who has claimed the armrest like royalty presiding over the court. "Sit," my eldest says. Not a request, but not hostile either. I sit. There's a silence heavy but not unbearable. Then my youngest clears their throat. We've been talking, they begin, and we think, maybe we need to stop pretending like this is about the money. My eldest nods, almost relieved. Yeah, it was never about that. It was about who Dad thought we were, who you thought we were. I breathe slowly. My chest feels both heavy and open, like bracing for a storm and a sunrise at the same time. They keep talking, sometimes halting, sometimes overlapping, sometimes circling the same point again and again. They admit things, small betrayals, private doubts, silent fears. They argue over details, sure, but the tone has changed. It's no longer knives, it's stitches. Clumsy, uneven, but stitches nonetheless. I listen more than I speak. And when I do speak, it's only to ground us, to remind them that Dad didn't leave the box to punish anyone. He left it because he was afraid that silence would rot us from the inside out. Oddly, in certain Japanese customs families deal with dishonor not by denying it, but by acknowledging it openly, sometimes even ritualizing the admission of guilt in front of witnesses. It's not about punishment, it's about cleansing. People still debate whether Western families need more rituals for repair or if words alone are enough. As the morning light spills across the carpet, I reach into the final folder, the one I had saved for this moment. Inside is a letter addressed simply, family, No names, no dates, just us. I read it aloud. If you're together when this letter is read, then I've done something right. The truth is, none of this was ever about wealth. It was about sight. I wanted you to see each other clearly, beyond the politeness, beyond the routines, beyond the masks. Families break when they stop seeing each other, when they live side by side like strangers in a hotel. I couldn't bear the thought of us ending that way. So if you're sitting here together, even in anger, even in tears, then we are not broken. We are alive. We are learning. I loved you enough to leave the truth behind. What you do with it now, that's yours. Only yours. I finish reading. The silence after is thick but softer than before. My eldest looks down at their hands, then back at me. I don't want to fight anymore, they whisper. My youngest leans into me, tentative but real. Me neither. And just like that, not forgiveness, not a miracle, but a choice to keep showing up, to keep sitting together even when it hurts. 3 light jokes break the spell a few minutes later. One about Dad probably laughing at us from wherever he is. Another about how the cat still managed to come out the real winner. And one about how we should have recorded this and made millions off our own reality show. The laughter is shaky, but it's laughter all the same. That night after dinner, I step outside. The sky is wide and clear, stars scattered like tiny truths across the dark canvas. The air is cool, the kind that feels like a reset button. Oddly, in some African traditions, families gather under open skies to tell their hardest stories, believing the stars can carry the pain higher, diffuse it, and return it as wisdom. People still debate whether healing requires faith in something bigger than us or if simply being together is enough. I go back inside. My children are still at the table, talking quietly, softly, like they've remembered how to be siblings again. And for the first time since finding that key, I feel something unexpected. Not relief, not even peace, just possibility. Maybe that's enough. And that's where I'll leave you tonight. Not with a perfect ending, not with every wound stitched up, but with a reminder. Families don't heal in one conversation. They heal in the tiny, ordinary moments that come after the shared coffee. The inside jokes. The decision to keep showing up when walking away would be easier. What started with a cold key and a hidden bank box ended with something warmer sight. We saw each other, our flaws, our fears, our betrayals, and somehow we kept sitting at the same table. That's what mattered. So if you've been listening closely, maybe you're thinking about your own family now, about the silences you've let grow too wide, about the truths you've been too afraid to face. Maybe this story is a mirror for you too. I want to thank you for sitting here with me, for breathing through the tension, for choosing to walk through this messy, jagged journey by my side. You've been more than an audience tonight, you've been company. And in stories like these, company is everything. So to my subscribers, to the ones who light a candle with me every night, who turn off the lights and let the fan hum while I whisper these truths, thank you. To the new voices who stumbled here by chance, welcome. Stay if this rhythm feels like home. Now close your eyes. Let the noise of the day dissolve. Let the shadows soften into something kind. And remember, you're not alone. Not in your stories, not in your betrayals, not in your healing. Good night.